My 32 male, wife 28 female wants a divorce after 6 months of marriage. My wife and I have been married for 6 months. We were together for 3 years before that. For some context, I am a Christian and I was saving myself for marriage. My wife had not. My wife was very open and had quite a few partners before we got together. That's never bothered me. I thought my choice to save myself for marriage didn't bother her, but apparently it did. We got married in late May. We went to Cancun for a honeymoon. Once we got there, my wife and I slept together once and she didn't seem into it. She barely touched or kissed me. Then we barely spoke the entire honeymoon. She spent most of her time drinking and avoiding me. I've tried to initiate many times since our wedding day, but she always refuses. We've only slept together that one time. I finally pressed my wife about it tonight. I asked her why we don't talk anymore and why she doesn't want to be intimate with me. She told me that I won't be able to handle her answer and I should have listened. I insisted she tell me. She asked if I wanted the whole truth, and I told her to hold nothing back, and she definitely did not. She told me that she realized she was no longer sexually attracted to me shortly after I proposed. She said she's always hated the idea of waiting, but she never said anything because she didn't want me to feel pressured into sleeping with her. She thought that her feelings would change after we got married and the attraction would come back. She started crying and told me that after we slept together on our wedding night, she took a long shower and cried. She started crying even harder and admitted to me that she wants a divorce. Honestly, I'm devastated. This is the only woman I've ever loved. I need help. I need to know what to say to change her mind. My husband, 28 male, is living with a female friend, and she, 22 female, has become hostile towards me, 23 female. My husband and I have been married for 3 years, and our marriage is on the rocks. It all mainly started after the birth of our first child together, in which he became increasingly irritable, aggressive, and sexually distant from me. Once he started to get physically abusive by grabbing and pushing me, we decided to live at different residences in a desperate attempt to salvage our marriage. That was 3 months ago. I'm currently living with my mom and I work part-time while also taking care of our 18-month-old son. My husband purchased a new condo with the financial help of his dad and lives with a female friend of his, 22 female, who he apparently charges rent. I was uncomfortable about his living arrangement with this woman from the moment I found out about it, mainly because we agreed that we are not taking a break in the sense of seeing others and we are still married and not going through a separation, but just trying to give each other, mainly him, space. I find it very weird that he has a 22-year-old friend who is comfortable enough to move in with him. Sussy. She has become very hostile towards me, which is strange because she's supposed to only be his friend and basically a tenant of his. For example, I went to visit him with our son, and the whole time she was sitting near him and staring at me with hatred. When I asked if he and I could talk privately, she said, "No, this is our place." And of course, this made everything awkward, so I just left shortly after that. I don't know why she would act so hostile towards me if she was just a friend and a tenant of his. My husband didn't seem bothered by her rudeness towards me either, and at one point I thought I saw him smirk. I don't know if I should be concerned that he and her have become more than friends, especially since my husband told me through text that him and I are still exclusive to each other. What is the best way to continue with this awkward situation? Am I wrong for not telling my parents that their daughter is dead? Well, that is kind of morbid, but okay. Long story short, 15 years ago, I received an anonymous letter in the mail that said I had a full sister my parents had in high school that no one told me about. The letter also gave me a home to start with for Leeds and said, "Don't ask your family for help." My mother thought the letter came from a half cousin who was incredibly gossipy and apparently over the years asked multiple relatives about the baby, and everyone just told him it was none of his business. I think it came from a childhood friend whose family was active in that church. The envelope had a city postmark nowhere near where either lived, though. I still remember the last paragraph because it was so overly dramatic. "Destroy this snow." The language may betray me. We all have known about this all this time. I confronted my parents, who were devastated that this finally reached me, but they were honest with me. It happened when they were both 16 and my grandparents forced my mother to go to a religious home until the baby was born. While there, she was mentally beaten down and degraded. The girls, all pregnant teens, were only allowed to go outside via a backyard with a high fence. My mother only saw the baby girl for a few seconds before Allison was taken away and she returned home and was told to never ever mention it to the family or anyone again. Eventually, my mom got pregnant with me again in college and was forced to drop out. There was a shotgun wedding. My parents are still together. Learning about this explained so much about the dynamics of my family, and my parents admitted that they stayed in the area hoping it'd be easier for my sister to find them one day if she wanted. But neither wanted to actively look for her. They said it was their daughter's decision if she wanted to search, and they asked me not to. But without telling them, I spent 5 very hard years searching for her only to find out that she died as a child. The paper trail was horrible. It's still a miracle that I was able to finally get as much information as I did. She has no death certificate. It broke me. Don't ever let anyone tell you you can't mourn someone you never met. My parents have never mentioned her again since the day I confronted them, and I mourned alone and kept her death to myself this past decade. But a few weeks ago, my mother said something unusual that makes me think she's finally ready to search for her daughter via the internet. As a side note, the only discussion my grandmother had when my mom returned was to ask if she had a photo of the baby. Of course, she wasn't allowed that. When I was small, my grandparents had these hanging connected frames in the house of all the grandkids, in age order, and the top frame was empty. I realized later this was my grandmother gaslighting my mom for a daughter and granddaughter she rejected when my mom needed support and love the most. And my poor mom had to see that frame every time she was over there. My parents' health is delicate and my dad is fighting cancer. I know learning about her death when they're in their 70s would be incredibly devastating. To me, it would be easier to just think that there's someone out there who's happy to be there, rather than learn she never had a chance to live. But now I'm torn. Am I the asshole for not telling them, even though they've never asked and I've never mentioned her in 15 years?
Storytime about how I asked my girlfriend to marry me 3 times and she said no. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I'm a 27-year-old male. My girlfriend is 33. We started dating 2 years ago. A couple of months in, we started talking about marriage and she sounded really open to it. My dream has always been to get married and have kids. I never thought I would fall in love this hard. I have dated girls before, but I have never put in this much effort. To tell you that I took her to meet my parents 2 weeks after I met her, and even after 2 years, I keep falling in love with her. I'm really close to my parents and I decided to tell them that I wanted to marry her. They told me to go for it. So I planned a very elaborate proposal. I even got her 2 best friends to help me. I hired a photographer, a videographer, and I got the type of ring that I knew she would love from Tiffany's. The day of the proposal, everything went perfect. She showed up looking absolutely beautiful, her friends were hiding behind a bush, and the photographer and the videographer got everything just at the right time. But guess what the problem was? She said no. She told me that she definitely didn't think we were ready for marriage or even to be engaged. This is a fundamental flaw. I don't agree with her. So 2 weeks later, I proposed again. And guess what she said? Part 2 is up. Story time about how I asked my girlfriend to marry me 3 times and she said no. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. So after she said no the first time, I decided to ask a second time. And this time she told me that she just wasn't convinced that I was the guy she wanted to marry. As you can imagine, this broke my heart. And I gotta tell you, I'm not a bad looking guy. I get hit on regularly by women. And all of the girlfriends I've had in my life that are just friends have told me that they would want to be in a relationship with a guy like me. I'm caring, kind, considerate, I'm funny. So for my girlfriend of 2 years to tell me that she wasn't convinced I was the guy for her, broke me to my core. I even started questioning my manliness. Would I be a good provider? Would I be a good father? Do I even deserve these things? My girlfriend has been the only girl that has never chased me. I'm always the one getting chased by girls, and truthfully, it bores me. So maybe the fact that she's not chasing me is what keeps me interested in her, which I know is so messed up, because maybe if she did say yes to marrying me, would I get bored of her? I asked her to marry me a 3rd time, and she said no again. My friends and family think I should break up with her, but I love her too much. I can't get enough of this girl. I want her to marry me. What should I do?
My boyfriend cheated on me whilst high on acid because he thought it was me. My partner, 24 male, and I, 22 female, joined our friends on a trip to the beach to try acid for the first time. There were only 5 of us, 2 boys and 3 girls, 2 couples and 1 extra girl. We took the acid while there was still sunlight because apparently it takes ages to take effect, and we spent this time drinking beer near our tents with a campfire going on. Mind you, as we were descending into tripping balls on acid, we were also getting quite drunk. I'm very lightweight, so I didn't have much to drink. My partner, on the other hand, had plenty. When it started to kick, it was fun. It was funny. I felt like the sand was grassy and I kept hearing Billie Eilish singing in my ear when it was really the wind blowing so hard it was whistling. This is where it goes downhill. Maybe like 4 or 5 hours later, I decided to go on a walk and had 2 friends join me because I couldn't go to sleep. My partner wanted to stay in our tent because he wasn't feeling well. Our other male friend who was coming to walk with me told his girlfriend to stay with my boyfriend so that she could look after him in case anything goes wrong. We thought all was well until we got back. When we returned, first thing I heard was obnoxious moaning and breathing. Me and the others panicked, so we immediately went into my boyfriend's tent and lo and behold, both naked, someone's girlfriend on top of my boyfriend. I ended up vomiting and passing out on the shore, but I heard a lot of yelling and crying. I woke up being in my tent and saw my boyfriend sleeping next to me. Honestly, I had to really think whether I hallucinated him cheating or that if it really happened. Our other friend's girlfriend had apparently left during the night without letting any of us know, so there was only 4 of us. My partner's excuse was that he genuinely thought that the girl was me. The smell, the eyes, the hair, etc. When I realized it was all real, I just cried and have been crying since. I've never felt so broken, betrayed, confused, and hurt at the same time. I want to make excuses for him and think maybe it was a mistake, but he full-on cheated. 4 years down the drain, just like that. I've been staying at my sister's since we got back, but he hasn't stopped texting and calling me to apologize and said that he's disgusted with himself and he genuinely thought it was me. I haven't spoken to him since, but I'm so tempted to. I miss him, but I'm just so hurt. I'm so confused. Should I break up with him for it? Side note, he'd been planning to propose to me for a month. He apparently made a custom order for an engagement ring to suit what I specifically liked. For context, the night it happened, he said that it was so dark in the tent that he could barely see anything and that the only light source was a campfire behind the tent. He wasn't wrong in that part, but surely you could feel and hear the difference. This girl had a deeper voice than I did and smelled entirely different from me. We have different perfumes. And she was blonde. I dyed my hair straight ginger. Dropping the proposal bomb on me just left me all the more confused and torn. How am I supposed to break up with him when he had been planning this all along? I feel like the a-hole now, even when I know I'm not. He knows I've been waiting for him to propose for over a year now. Part 2. My boyfriend cheated on me while he was high on acid. Our friend was able to get in touch with the girl who was caught with my partner because he went to the girl's house and no one ended up being there. I'll try to break it down as best I can, starting with my partner whom called off work to come to me so that we could sit down and talk about it once and for all. From his perspective, while being in the tent alone, he couldn't tell whether he was asleep or not. He thinks his eyes were open, but it wouldn't make a difference whether he blinked or stared into the abyss. He said he was really dizzy but really hyper, but then also really tired, and all those feelings made him nauseous, but not to the point where he needed to throw up, just enough for him to feel the need to lie down and relax. He said he heard the tent open, but he didn't react because he naturally thought it was me. He said, "You going to bed?" as the girl he thought was me just plummeted herself onto the sheet next to him. He couldn't recall whether he heard a response, but he said that he felt a kiss on his arm. He went in to spoon her and say goodnight, until he felt a kiss on his lips. He kissed back and it progressed from there. He said he consented with his body as he thought it was me, but not because he was hallucinating, but because he couldn't see anything. He had his eyes closed most of the time because he couldn't see anyways, apparently. Then they got naked and she straddled him. They didn't have intercourse, but instead they were just dry humping naked. He said he couldn't even feel anything, as if no one was on top of him. Then the tents were ripped open and he thought it was just her closing it behind her, but it was us. Then he saw us and got really confused. This was when he thought that maybe he was hallucinating, hence the no reaction. He thought that there was no way he could see me outside the tent when I was straddling him naked. Then the guy started yelling, the girl got off of him, and he went out of the tent naked. He said he forgot he was naked and got so confused as to what was happening. Then he saw me vomit and then pass out. The whole time our guy friend was yelling at him, he carried me back into the tent and stared at me for a good minute. He looked at our friend who was yelling and asked if this was real. Then he realized it was. That's when he started getting agitated, stressed, and started crying because he realized he just cheated on me. Then the girl disappeared and they didn't notice until the guy stopped yelling to ask the girl what she was doing on top of him. He told me that the girl never spoke, only moaned. He thought it was me as we had similar hair length and was confusing her eyes for mine whenever he got a glimpse of her in the light. I gave him a hug when he finished explaining. We were both crying at this point, still are. I asked him if he needs help reporting this girl to the police, and he said no. He said that he thinks she confused him for her partner too, and I said there's absolutely no way that happened when she could see her boyfriend across the shore walking with me. He said that he didn't feel assaulted because he was reacting to it with the same energy, but that it was definitely weird finding out it wasn't me in the end. We were both relieved that we talked about it, and it genuinely felt like he was telling me the truth. I've known this man for 5 years. He physically cannot lie. As for the girl, buckle the F up. We finally heard from her and our guy friend, and apparently she'd been MIA because she was in the effing hospital. She got her phone taken away by her mom. Our friend went to the girl's house because he was sick of waiting for a response and no one ended up being home. He then got the mom's number from the neighbor they were close with and called her, and then was able to speak to the girl. Really weird if you ask me. Her own mom told her friend that she was home safe, but she'd been in the hospital this whole time. She said she left because of how disgusted she felt when she realized what she'd done. She said that she just wanted to lie down but confused our tent to be theirs. When she heard my partner say, "You going to bed?" she said that she thought he said, "No sex?" and immediately heard her boyfriend's voice instead of mine, as in confused my boyfriend's voice to be her boyfriend's voice. So she initiated a small kiss, and when he reciprocated, she was reassured that it was indeed her boyfriend. Completely forgotten about the fact that he was 20 footsteps away from her. Completely forgotten that she was asked to watch my partner in case anything happens. And so, when she realized what she'd done, she left without saying anything and took an Uber home. Then jumped out of the moving effing car because she thought the car wasn't moving and that the car wasn't moving because she was home. She ended up fracturing her arm, staying longer in the hospital for suicidal ideation. I think she's going to be fine for endangering herself and others while being high on acid. She did end up saying that she accepts whatever happens to her, whether we report what happened or beat her up, etc. Our friend said that she sounded very remorseful and worried for all of us, especially my partner and I. She said herself she thinks she assaulted him because she was the one who had initiated it. We're waiting to hear more from him about her, and now he's on his way to visit her. A lot about it is very unclear to us still and doesn't add up. Needless to say, I'm both relieved and horrified to have heard both parties' perspective. We'll continue to work on this and probably need therapy. We were irresponsible and really stupid. We thought the beach was an awesome idea for the solitude, silence, and the view, but we didn't factor the darkness and consequences for drinking and taking acid at the same time. Am I in the wrong for calling off our wedding after my sister-in-law shaved my beard? I'm 28 male and my fiance 25 female, who we'll call Lexi, are a happy couple of 6 years and engaged for 1, or so I thought. For context, my fiance's sister, 32 female, we'll call her Sally, has always been hostile towards me and would rarely speak to me, and when she did, it was because her parents were around. Sally is Lexi's rock because she got her through a tough time during college, and since then, Lexi has told Sally everything about everything. We've had problems with this in the past, due to her telling Sally about personal things in my childhood I'd only told a few people, which led to us not speaking for 3 months during COVID when she'd only leave our room for food and go to the toilet. And recently, we hadn't had an argument in a year plus until 3 nights ago when she mentioned that she liked me to shave my beard. For context, I have a very thick beard that I've been growing out for 8 years and I'm very proud of. So I, of course, told Lexi that I wouldn't be shaving my beard, to which she stormed off to the kitchen and slammed her wine glass into the sink, smashing it and a plate in the process. I immediately stood up and asked her what the fuck she was doing. She then spun around and screamed that I'm a selfish a-hole because I won't shave my beard, and ran into our bedroom and slammed the door. I ended up sleeping on the couch and woke up around 4 in the morning to Sally with a razor trying to shave my beard, so I pushed her off of me. Lexi then ran to check on Sally whilst I was looking at a big patch Sally had taken off of my beard. Then I went upstairs and packed a bag whilst Lexi shouted at me for hurting Sally. I told her to F off and that the wedding was off and walked out of the house and drove an hour to my parents' house where I've been staying since the incident. Earlier today, I got a text from Sally saying that I was selfish for not shaving my beard because when I go down on Lexi, it feels weird. I haven't replied to her. My family thinks that I should break off the relationship, but her family said I should just shave it all and move on. I've gotten 99 plus text calls from Lexi saying things like, don't leave, let's have sex one more time, I'm pregnant. She's trying to baby trap me, I think. So what should I do, and am I wrong?